Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, and today I'll be reading a Neuvillette listener by me. So let's get into it. It was an odd situation. It was a very odd one indeed. He had never really had the urge to mark something as his own. He never considered himself selfish or possessive in any way. And yet, it seems like after he regained his sovereignty, and also with you in the equation now, it was a much different situation than before. And now, it was something entirely different from what it was, say, a year ago. He didn't know why he wanted to mark you, why that voice in his head only wanted to make sure that you were his and his alone. It sounded foolish, selfish, and possessive, and so unlike him. And yet, right now it was all that he wanted. He wanted to make it known that you were his. He wanted to show everyone that nobody else will be able to take you away from him, even though he knew very well that nobody would dare try. He knew you were his. He loved you, and he was sure of your love. So he had no idea why the sudden urge was coming through to him, and why he could not resist it. It was becoming an ultimately difficult thing to deal with, something he most likely wanted to avoid, and yet it seemed unavoidable for the most part, and he despised that. Not that he was ever going to tell you. It was simply a little bit too much for him, and he had no idea how to request this. How should he go about it? Wyan, can I bite you? It sounded too silly and embarrassing, and yet it seemed like he had no solution besides actually doing that, as embarrassing as it could have been. That's why he gave in and decided there was no reasoning with that voice in his head that ultimately wanted nothing more than you in every way possible, but also wanted its mark on you. He wanted to mark you as his, and maybe because as a dragon, he considered you his treasure. And one thing known about dragons is that they would always hoard their treasures and keep them close. And he supposed, by that logic, he was no different. One must always come back to the roots, no matter how adaptable he was, and how reasonable he could be. Some things were not quite so easy to change, and that was just another matter, a facet of him that he was rather uncomfortable with, but would have to deal with all the same. So right now, as he was within your room, he knew that he had to tell you what he wanted one way or another. So as he held your hand, squeezing it gently, he looked into your eyes. Wyan, please, may I tell you something? Of course, Neuvillette. You may tell me whatever you want. Well, it's more of a request, really. But may I please bite you, if that makes sense? I promise I'm not normally this way. It is merely that after I had regained my sovereignty, there has been this urge that I've been unable to suppress, and I can't quite fight it. So if you would not mind, please, allow me. You nodded, smiling gently. It's all right, Neuvillette. You didn't have to give me a speech. I know that some things are a little bit different, and it's a lot for you to adjust to, but I'll do my best. Now, do as you want. I'm rather patient. You smile, and he's quite surprised by your willingness. But then again, you were always an angel. At least he had considered you so. You were, by his standards, after all. And so, things had actually gone by quite well. He had gotten you to sit on his lap, And now he was trying his best to calm down and try to do as he wanted. He took a deep breath and leaned in, right into the side of your neck, biting gently into the flesh. But after all, perhaps one bite made him realize how much he wanted this. And then things escalated from there. His bites becoming a little bit rougher and harsher. Him holding you so tightly against him that there were almost bruises left by the time it was over. It was a little bit too intense, and too unlike him. And yet, it was the best time the two of you have ever had. And Neuvillette felt finally satisfied. He was one to resist his own urges most of the time, not really willing to risk inconveniencing you or making you upset. And right now, being finally able to indulge himself, it was something that he needed so much and only knew the value of until now. And as he bit once more into your skin, he held you ever closer, his breaths heavy, and he looked into your eyes. There was a dizzy look to his own, and it was almost strange seeing him like this. So unlike him, out of his own composure, totally lost, and totally happy with how the two of you were able to spend your past few minutes. Neuvillette, I think you went a little bit too hard on this. You got excited, didn't you? You say. Your voice is a little bit shaky from all the excitement, and you're blushing brightly, burying your face into his neck. There were a lot of marks and a lot of bruises, and yet, when he looked at them and traced them with his thumb, he felt intense pride and happiness. I apologize, Wyan. I will do my best to control myself in the future. But I will be honest. Seeing you like this makes me truly happy. I know, I can tell. And I'm happy as well, Neuvillette. As long as you're happy too. As much as you consider this intense, you wouldn't deny that it was very much what you wanted, and you were satisfied in that regard. And as for Neuvillette, he had no idea how much he needed this, and it was uncertain whether he would be able to control himself much in the future. But that was a thing to worry about later on.